Welcome to the Snap UK podcast, your home for NFL news, views and opinions on this side of the pond. With me today, I have a nearly full house of accomplices. Paul Farrow, get your finger out. I've got Gilo, John and Jim. Say hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
My name's Griff, and as we begin the new league season, today's pod will be covering a few different things. We'll be starting with some news, which we'll get into a second, but the main part of today's podcast will be announcing who has drawn which teams as they play GM in the Snap podcast draft, set for 2 weeks' time, a couple of days ahead of the NFL draft. So we'll find out who's going to get the easiest first pick since 2012, what somebody is going to do with the Seahawks' meager draft capital of 3 picks, and whether anyone ranks Mac Jones as highly as the 49ers seem to do, which is an error if you do. So, before all that, the news, we'll start with the Sam Darnold trade from the Jets, where he has been beset by problems, to the Panthers, who are in mid-rebuild with a lot of good talent to come in and a very good head coach, something Darnold hasn't had. Is this a win-win-win? Jets, Panthers and Darnold all coming out of this as winners. What do we think?
I don't think there's any losers in it, because I think it gives Darnold another opportunity to prove the potential that he had coming out of the draft. You're right. I do think he got screwed over in New York. He never had a good offensive coordinator. He never had a decent head coach. Never really had good players around him. I think this is his opportunity now with Matt Rule and the offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, all the talent they've got on the offense side of things. If you take in McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, who he reunites with, along with a better offensive line, I think if he doesn't do it over the next couple of years with Carolina, then we have to call him a bust. Saying that, he's got 2 years left on his contract. It's a good period of time for the Panthers to see what they've got, and if it is bad, then they've got a pick in 2023 to find someone new.
So I think it worked really well.
Sorry, what was the overall trade compensation? It was a second-round pick next year, wasn't it?
Yeah, then 2/3, was it?
I thought it was a 6th this year, a 2nd next year, and perhaps something else as well.
I'm sure there was a 3rd in there somewhere.
I think it was a 6th. I think it was a 3rd.
Second.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I believe it's 2 6ths and a 2nd next year. Yeah, I believe so. So, sorry, you were saying with regards.
Well, it'd be interesting, I think, to see. Obviously, they've got Teddy still there at the moment, so we don't actually know who's going to start yet, do we? So, are they going? Because obviously, like the Niners, Rosen's bounced around the league a bit now. People have had a closer look at him without having to pay very much to do so. This could be a little bit of that, but it'll be interesting to see because Teddy Bridgewater's still only 28.
I think Teddy's gone from there. I think if you look at all the smoke around, because the Panthers try to get Matt Stafford. There's massive rumours about them trying to make a big play for Deshaun Watson before that blew up. There was kind of rumours that in the draft they'd be looking to trade up into that 3rd spot before the 49ers moved there. I think they've made their mind up on the quarterback isn't Teddy, because there's just been too many things connecting them with other quarterbacks, and now they've obviously got their next quarterback. I could see Teddy leaving. Depending on what happens in the draft, he could end up at the Broncos or something like that.
Do you not think Teddy is sitting in what we now call the Sam Bradford position, where as soon as somebody's quarterback gets injured just before the season starts, he's going to be the man to come in?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I don't think he'll command a 1st-round pick like Sam did.
No.
And even that was too much. But yeah, I think he's gone. I mean, he's been given permission to seek a trade as well. So his time in Carolina's done.
Yeah.
Is he the Case Keenum zone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he might be. I mean, I think I can't see any losers here. I don't even think Teddy's a loser. If the team doesn't want you and they're telling you you've got all this time to find someone to work a deal with, that's as good as it can be, even from his front. He's not washed up yet. It just didn't work out last year. So as long as he doesn't end up at the Texans, he'll probably be all right. I think I think it's the best move for Darnold. I think McCaffrey will be the best weapon he's ever had to work with. Basically, imagine if Le'Veon Bell's trade had worked out. It would be a bit like that. Like, it'll take the pressure off Darnold immediately. And I really think Matt Rule will be the first proper, decent coach that he's had. So it has to be a winner for him. And then the Jets have basically made a decision, which is something that organisation does not do well. They will go into the draft to take a quarterback. It most likely will be Zach Wilson. And they're giving themselves a chance at resetting and going again, knowing they're not hampered by a player who clearly isn't progressing under their regime. So I can't find a loser in this trade, and that's a rarity.
So that, I mean, I feel like there have been one or two trades where there aren't any losers over the last year or so. But yeah, this is one. I think the Jets now have got a new coach, they have a new quarterback, so they have 5 years to find out, with a quarterback under a rookie contract, to try and build the roster, get into a position to win. They're in a tough division. Bills are looking good, Dolphins are rebuilding. You can't rule the Patriots out in terms of what they've done in free agency. Plus, they've got Bill Belichick. So, like that, the NFC East is hard. So, I think it's going to be a good 2-3 years, before we see hopefully the resurgence of the Jets. I'm supporting them because I want to see Robert Saleh do well. But I don't trust the ownership there. I still think they'll do something to screw it up.
Seems likely, doesn't it? Okay, let's move on from Darnold. We cannot do anything but tread carefully, but we also can't ignore this anymore. The Deshaun Watson debacle. Anyone want to, for want of a better phrase, tackle this first? Because this is not good, and this is a very real possibility that he is not starting for the Texans anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, we talked, I think, on the last podcast about whether he would sit or move, and that was widely seen as the two options.
Yeah,
but I think we've got to throw a suspension, or commissioners list in there now and say he's not going to be playing. Obviously, there was 18 people have made allegations now. They're all very similar. Whether they're all true or whether they've all gone down the same line, we cannot say. But there is something eerily similar about their recollections, which suggests that there is a pattern of behaviour. And if you've seen the interview that came out, I think it was last week, with the first victim that was prepared to reveal her identity, she was very believable. And she came across very credible. So I think that puts him in a very, very difficult situation.
Do you know what the thing for me is? It feels a bit like if he was going to apologise, the time has passed for that. Once people start coming out and publicly displaying what you did with the emotion that lady did, even if some of it is concocted by some of the people, your time for apologising has gone. That moment of saying, do you know what, I might have done this and somebody might have taken offence. And I think that's what gets you on the commissioner's list, if nothing else, if nothing more serious.
And if he's been stupid enough to use like platforms like Instagram or WhatsApp, where he's sending messages going, are you going to be alone? Make sure no one else is around. Have you massaged these certain areas before? If there's written communication that follows a pattern, do you see him have to spend a genuinely long time away from the game, or do you just not see him back in the game at all? Because
I think he'll be back in the game. I mean, the allegations are deplorable, but there's nothing worse than what we've seen from other players who have physically assaulted people. Or
well, the police are obviously now looking into it as well. So obviously it depends if as this comes to fruition, obviously all outcomes are possible, including a custodial sentence.
Yeah.
So it might not even be in his hands.
No.
So definitely, you said about Teddy Bridgewater. Actually, he's probably a poor man's Deshaun Watson. So he probably wouldn't be a bad fit.
Do we not acknowledge that Teddy Bridgewater and Tyrod Taylor are probably going to do a similar job, and Tyrod's already there?
Yeah, probably. So but they need two, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and you'd think at least Teddy would provide some competition. But the more you think that this is going to progress down the line, it is, the more it looks like Tyrod Taylor is now starting for an awful Texans team next season. So moving slightly away from Watson himself, the impact on this team, if he's definitely not playing, they're suddenly overwhelming favourites for the number one pick next year.
The Texans are suddenly an expansion team.
Yeah,
that's the best way. I can't remember who wrote that. I think it might have been Peter King's article this week, and I read it and thought, yeah, that's what they are. Because you look at, we touched on this a couple of weeks back. You look at their roster at the moment, and you go, there is no one there that I would take on my team at the moment. I can say that there's no one there I'd want on the 49ers that I think would make a 49ers a better team. So yeah, they'll go into this year with a bad roster already, no picks in the top 60 picks of the draft, like that, and hardly any picks anyway. So yeah, they it's not even rebuilding. It's like this. They have to write off this year. You look at next year's draft, and okay, there are always one or two quarterbacks that do come out of kind of college season, which suddenly kind of increase their stock. I think of Joe Burrow's the year before last. But at the moment, when you look at the quarterbacks coming out next year, it's nowhere near what it is this year.
No.
So I think if I was a Texans fan, I'd be really down, because I think you're looking at 4 or 5 years of utter horrid football from that team. I think they could be easily be picking in the top 10 of the draft for the next 5 years.
You say about next year's draft, it looks a bit like we had the year where like Andrew Luck and RG3 came out, and then the following year, was it not the only first-round quarterback was EJ Manuel, who went on to be
exactly
a massive disappointment, and it looks the same for next year at the moment. So yeah, I think you're right. I think the Texans are suddenly in a far worse position than they actually thought they could be.
Yeah. At least before all the legal issues that Deshaun Watson's going on, you could say, well, they've either got a quality quarterback if they can convince him to stay, or they can trade him for 2-3 first-round picks. No one, and this is why the Panthers kind of moved on Darnold. No one's touching Deshaun Watson until this is vaguely sorted out.
How much do they wish they traded early?
Oh man, yeah.
They're playing poker. I'd love to play poker against the Texans GM. I'd make so much money.
Yeah.
They haven't played their hand well at all. Okay,
at all.
I think we've touched that as gently as we can and covered it. I'd like us to move on to something that I don't like. The 17-game season is official. Jeff Fisher can never return to coaching. Now you can't go 8-8. Why do we need another regular season game? I know it's money, but why do I need another regular season game?
Because you like watching football.
Yeah. Oh, hold up. I think we've all just forgotten that the best thing that's going to come out of this is an extra episode of The Snap. So it's not about what we need, it's about what our listeners need.
Why aren't
you're being a bit selfish.
Why aren't people considering the workload of Scott Hansen? The guy must be a wreck by the end of the season. Now we're putting him through an extra week. I know the players are playing the game, but he's going 8 hours every Sunday.
Well, if you so how many weeks do we get football for now? So you've got 17
We've got
plus
18
a bye
weeks.
week plus playoffs.
Yeah.
So it means we're going to get football for about 40% of the year.
I know.
I don't know what the problem is.
The Super Bowl's pushed back a week, isn't it? Not a year, a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of those are great, valid arguments. But when you're watching, I don't know, the Texans play the Cardinals in week 18 now, you're going to think, this is terrible.
Yeah, but you might. But when you're watching, like the Packers versus the Seahawks, you'd be like, I can quite easily ignore that shit. I mean,
there's already loads of dead rubbers at the end of the season, isn't there?
It's like in football. I can ignore Burnley, West Brom, which seems to happen every weekend, because I know that Man City are going to be playing someone. Liverpool.
I really thought you were going to tuck in the fact you beat Man City with 10 men then.
Yeah. And there's some great player teams out there beating the champions elect with a player less. But just look up. Just think we're going to see some more great stuff
So,
And
are none of you sad about the loss of the 8-8 season? Because I am.
It's just going to take some getting used to. I think for me, the biggest issue I have is that there's suddenly going to be a whole load of new player records. Like getting to 2,000 yards rushing is slightly easier.
Yeah.
Beating Jerry Rice's or Calvin Johnson's single season receiving yards record is slightly easier. I think that for me, that's the only thing that's kind of like.
I think it's important that likely most, you might get one team that goes 8-8 and a draw. It's going to be unusual. So you're going to have a winning or a losing season. I think a lot of teams and a lot of coaches just ride 8-8 for, as Jeff Fisher did for years and years and years. And it's sport. It's about winning or losing, isn't it? And I think I know the players are kicking off about it, but they signed up to it. This is no surprise. I thought when this came on the agenda for this week, I thought we'd talked about this in the WhatsApp group literally about 6 weeks ago.
I was going to say, this has been on the agenda for the NFL for at least the last 5 years. I will also point out that the 17th game this year means that the Chiefs are going to be playing the Packers. So, you're right. There could be
there'll be some great
Texans.
There'll be some terrible.
Yeah, whoever. But Chiefs versus Packers in week 18. I'll take that.
I remember sitting in Jim's kitchen. I think must have been about 2 years ago.
What, when we could sit in people's kitchens?
I remember visit people.
remember those days. And I think it was just an episode of me and Jim were on. I think we spoke for half an hour about why a 17th game is a bad idea. And of course, all it proved is that Roger Goodell does not listen to the Snap UK.
the one, if you want to produce one point that I think is a genuine concern, is the growth in number of player injuries. When you keep adding in extra games, extra playoff games, extra regular season games, that's an issue for me as well.
I do think that I think there will be changes. I think the Players Association will ask for changes in things like the size of the roster. Obviously, there will be elements of money in terms of kind of how much of that money goes to players, but also how much of how the contracts change. There'll probably be more emphasis on guarantees. But I think
I've seen a couple of places where they've said players might say contracts will stipulate they can only play 16 games. So you have to start somebody else in another game.
I can't see that happening. I think so. There's still, whatever happens, there's going to be one less preseason game. I could see it going down to 2 preseason games. So everyone hates the preseason.
We don't need them anyway, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I think they'll go down to 2 preseason games, which actually means you kind of, compared to where they were a couple of years ago, you're actually down a game as such.
It's going to be interesting this year in a sort of, I know COVID's still around, but in a more post-COVID environment, because a lot of the injuries this year could, I'm sure, would be about the lack of preparation the players had because of COVID. So a sort of, because a lot of the injuries were sort of week 1, week 2, week 3, really early on. And I think that will help more preparation.
And I think you've got to look at the whole picture as well, haven't you? Because if you think about everything else that's changed over the last 10 years, they've taken out helmet hits, really clamped down on those. You're not allowed to touch the quarterback over the shoulder or beneath the knee, and you're not allowed to land on him or put your weight on the quarterback. There's lots of other things that have been done to reduce injuries. So you're getting paid millions of dollars. Just play.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, all of those basically cover the breadth of opinion I thought we might get out of this. But generally, you're all in favour, and I shall be pleased to watch the Packers Chiefs. I can't deny. So we'll just ignore whatever the terrible team is in that week. Right. Yesterday's news. 3-time Super Bowl winner and former Super Bowl MVP Julian Edelman has called it a career due to injury. He missed 11 games last year.
I saw a different one. I thought that he'd failed another drug test. And rather than declare that, he would just say he retired due to injury.
Okay. 3-time Super Bowl winner and former Super Bowl MVP Julian Edelman will not play next season for whatever reason you choose to stipulate. Jim's first question was Hall of Fame, yes or no? Obviously, I'm going to say yes. He's one of very few wide receivers who've won the Super Bowl MVP. He's got 3 titles to his name, and he has one of the greatest catches in Super Bowl history. He's an absolute surefire Hall of Famer.
I completely disagree. I grant you, he's been a good player. He's had his moments. He turns up in big games. He turns up in playoffs. I think he's got the second most receiving yards in playoff history. But you look at his stats, and we've often talked about other players and saying that Hall of Fame worthy players is a player who dominates at their position for a period of time.
Mm.
I think you could go through the last 10 years and you could say, okay, last 10 years, how long has he's been playing? 11 years.
Yeah.
Last 11 years, name me the top 20 wide receivers you'd want in your team. And I think you'd struggle to get Julian Edelman in there.
Every time we do a top 10 wide receiver on this podcast,
never talk about Julian
never
Edelman.
even talked about him. And you do have to put the fact that he's had numerous failed drugs tests in there as well. I know lots of players do, but that is a fact. How many games has he missed? He must have failed at least 3 drug tests.
I don't know. He's missed a few. I think
he's had 3 seasons where he's played all 16. He started all 16 games.
Yeah.
He's only had 3 seasons where he's gone over 1,000 yards.
Cult player. He's a cult player.
Yeah.
All of these things are true, and then I'll bring you back to the Eli argument. Eli's only going to the Hall of Fame because he's won the titles.
But he's a quarterback.
But the rest of his stats are terrible.
Yeah.
Not
many wide receivers win 3 Super Bowls, and that
he might have only caught 2 passes in one of those games.
Yeah, he might have done.
But my point is, the quarterback's got to throw 40 passes. So I don't think it works the same. I think he'll probably get in just because, that's just how the American system works. But I agree with Jim. I don't think he should be in.
I would like also to say that whilst I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame, I really appreciate the player. I think he's been a phenomenal player for the Patriots.
Yeah.
I think his story is incredible in terms of what was he, a 6th, 7th round pick, was a quarterback out of Kent University, came into the team, played wide receiver, can be a bit of a gadget player. He's got some amazing plays where he's actually thrown the ball as well. Plays with, you can see the way he plays. It's all with heart. He's smaller than the average wide receiver, but you would have no doubt about throwing across the middle and him getting hit.
Amazing competitor, isn't he?
Yeah,
that's what he is.
Brilliant competitor, brilliant athlete. Seems to have a brilliant attitude as well on the pitch in terms of leadership. So I think it's a big loss to the game because he seems like a great player, a great person, but not a Hall of Famer.
Fair enough. When he gets in, I'll give you a call.
You do that.
All right, moving on from Julian Edelman. Another quit this week was Tyler Gabriel. He was only 30. I thought he'd been around longer than that. Sat out all of last year due to COVID. And I was expecting to see him back. I thought he was a really underrated player for the Falcons. And a big part of the run they had to get to the Super Bowl. And I'm surprised he hadn't had more calls to come back into the game. He feels like an afterthought because he didn't participate last season.
I think he's one of those gadget players, and he needs the right coach and the right offensive coordinator to make it work. He had one good season in Atlanta, really, and that was under Shanahan. You look at the wide receivers that Shanahan's got at the 49ers, and we've got that covered with Ayuk or Deebo Samuel. So I don't think there's space from there. Not a massive loss. I don't think anyone knows how to use him. It's not big enough.
How many players are there like that outside of wide receiver 1 and 2?
Yeah,
there's so many players. It's like when we do our fantasy draft, you get your top 1 or 2 receivers, and after that, they're all much of a muchness. So why would you bring one back that is 30 and has just had a year out of the game when you could just take one from the draft in the 5th round, who's going to be less than half the money, have way more upside? I just don't see what benefit you get from taking that punt.
Yeah.
That's fair. It was just a name that I was surprised. I didn't even realise he didn't play last year, which kind of says why he's a bit anonymous. It just
he was a Bears wide receiver, so you could be forgiven for not.
Yeah.
You don't ever see the top of his helmet as the ball flies 20 yards over him. But he got his money. He was a $26 million contract from the Bears. Yeah. So. I didn't realize he was 30 years old, but he had a good time with the Falcons. It's 3 years later, he's not done anything since then. So,
that Falcons team have never recovered from that Super Bowl defeat, have they? Apart from Julio Jones getting 1,000 yards every year and Calvin Ridley looking like he could be a superstar. Apart from that, they've done literally nothing.
It's their defence that's been the problem, to be fair. Their offence hasn't been bad.
But how much of that's garbage time offence?
No, they're normally chasing games because they're already behind. That's the problem.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. So similar to Stafford.
Well,
throwing
the Falcons take a lead and then fuck it up.
Behind.
That's true. The Falcons do.
The Falcons go into garbage time, 20 points up and lose.
It's very true.
They have lost a running game, though. That's as well as they've never replaced Devontae Freeman.
They've never replaced Shanahan.
Yeah.
Another player whose name cropped up this week, former first rounder Carl Joseph, returning to the Raiders after a year away with the Browns. Now, not a big name, I know, but a former Pro Bowler. I believe in his first year he went to the Pro Bowl. And the Raiders desperately need to improve their defence. This is a good plug-in and play piece for them. And I thought it was noteworthy because they haven't added very many pieces at all in the off-season. So, sensible move for them, I think.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think you're right. I think they've lost a lot of pieces on the offense. They've lost a lot of pieces on the offensive line, but I think the defense has always been they've still not got a pass rush. I don't really rate their cornerbacks. I don't rate their linebackers. I wouldn't be surprised. He comes in
as one of the best defensive players on the team.
Yeah. How long does he get before he gets moved upstairs? Because what's his year 5 now?
Well, no, 2018 he joined.
Yeah.
So 18,
so year 4,
19,
year 4.
Year 4.
No, 2016 he started.
I was right.
John Gruden.
Yeah, John Gruden.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so year 4 this is then. So year 4, I know they've had to move, but you're expecting some sort of progress with, $100 million. Remember they're paying this coach.
I feel like they have made progress, but I see your point. I don't think it's very much progress.
I think they're one whole season behind where they thought they would be.
Yeah.
If they don't make the playoffs this year, I think it starts to become shaky.
And I think he's too expensive to get rid of. I think they create a position for him.
I don't think he'd take that, to be fair. I think he's got too much pride for that. But yes, I see your point, and it is valid. They're not progressing at any speed. It's all slow and steady, and there's no vision for what... You couldn't tell me what their plan is. You have no idea, because they don't seem to have one.
Well, constantly we're arguing about, does he like the quarterback? Does he not like the quarterback? Does he want a new quarterback?
That is a fair point.
That's one thing that we argue about all the time.
Yeah, there never seems to be any kind of confidence behind Carr. It's always even when Mariota's still there, and you're like, Mariota's a good quarterback. Like he should be challenging Carr. I think Carr's underrated, but yeah.
What is it? Still, they've only had one winning season this century.
Have they really? I couldn't tell you that.
They're a team absolutely built recently on failure.
Yeah. It's only the Browns that have been worse since 2000, off the top of my head. But I think you're right, and maybe the Washington football team are right there as well. They've been pretty poor. Okay. Let's quickly discuss the announced changes to the international series, which may impact the number of games we see here in London. It looks like Germany are getting games. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I've heard the rumour, yeah.
And it's big. The sport is big there. And we have seen thousands of German fans when we've been to London to watch the game. So that would make sense for them to do that. Mexico are obviously keeping their international games. I believe Canada want to get back in because didn't they not have a year off? Toronto had a year off, I think.
Yeah.
So Canada want games. Anywhere else? I believe it's quite big in Japan, the game. So
I was going to say I could see it going to China, like the NBA have been to China before now. So it wouldn't shock me if the NFL, dip their toe into the Chinese waters and see what happens there. I think Germany is pretty much nailed on. I think we're going to be splitting games. I think from a European point of view, I think they're going to split the games between London and Germany because once you're on a plane to London, you might as well keep going for another hour and go to Germany.
Does that mean that we're going to lose them from Wembley to White Hart Lane.
Yeah,
I think.
it's going to be all White Hart Lane.
Yeah, I think so.
Which really?
Which is going to be I think they've got an agreement, haven't they?
Yeah.
When they built the new stadium, they had 2 games for 10 years, wasn't it?
Okay.
So
yeah, they made specific adaptations to the stadium, particularly for the NFL. So it was very much like we're going to move games here. I think Wembley will still hold 1 or 2 games every now and then, but I think White Hart. Well, is it still called White Hart Lane?
Yeah.
Is it
White
not
Hart
the
Lane.
Tottenham Stadium or I don't know.
It's still
We'll
White
call
Hart
it-
Lane, this podcast.
They just extended it, didn't they? They
Yeah,
just made
they're
it
still
bigger.
they're still
Do you
looking
not-
for a sponsor.
Does this not relate back though to the extra games, the 17th game, because this will give
Yeah,
them
it does.
flexibility to send more teams over?
Yeah, it certainly does, and it means that technically every team could still have 8 home, 8 away, and 8 neutral, and a neutral game. Sorry, but yeah, whether they decide to play all those games abroad,
That was something that was quite interesting. Actually, I was watching something a couple of months ago, and they were talking about the 17th game and how they will probably have to try and make it so each year, each division plays home or away for their 17th game. So you might get a whole division that play away for their extra game, and then another division that play home, and then the following year they swap.
Yeah,
because otherwise you'll have
got an unfair advantage, haven't you, within the division?
Yeah.
So I was just saying that came back to me when you mentioned that.
Yeah,
good point.
Finally, then, before we round off the news, trades and moves that have impacted the draft positions. We haven't really covered this. Obviously, the 49ers have made their way up the draft board. Look like they're zeroing in on Mac Jones, which I don't like the sound of. That's what it looks like, but hopefully they won't go down that road. That would be a massive reach for me.
right.
Trey Lance.
I'm more on the Justin Fields, but I'll take Trey Lance over Mac Jones. Right, so every commentator at the moment, you look at pretty much any mock draft from any respectable draft media pundit, be it Kuiper, be it Matt Miller, be it Greg Zuerlein, be it Daniel Jeremiah, they've all got Mac Jones at 3 to the 49ers. That doesn't happen. Like, you never, apart from like Trevor Lawrence and now Zach Wilson 1 and 2, and Andrew Luck and whoever else has been nailed on number 1. It so rarely happens that every single media pundit is like, "Yep, this is happening." So there has to be something behind it. There's probably about 80% of me is like just resigned to the fact that it's going to be Mac Jones, and we'll support Shanahan and hopes he can do it. There's another 20% of me that's like, there's no way you give up all that draft capital and move all the way up to number 3 to pick Mac Jones when you could probably get him at 8 or 9 or 12 where you were originally. And also, like, it's things that Shanahan has said in the past. When the Bills beat us last year, he commented on the fact that Josh Allen is a mobile quarterback, big arm, athletic. And you look at Trey Lance and Justin Fields, and you can make the comparison between those 2 quarterbacks and Josh Allen. And you also look at where Shanahan's been successful. He's had success with RG3. He's had success with other mobile quarterbacks. You look at the Shanahan system overall in terms of Mike Shanahan. He won 2 quarterbacks with John Elway. He won 2 Super Bowls with John Elway. He won a Super Bowl as an offensive coordinator with Steve Young. Neither of those quarterbacks were pocket passes like Mac Jones. So, yeah, I get it. All the rumors are pointing to Mac Jones, but there's still a little part of me which is like, I think this is a smoke.
A lot of the talk they're saying it's because he's a similar player to Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, you look at the comparisons.
Strong, good. Doesn't do anything crazy, but doesn't do anything. He
had a great season at Alabama. He's incredible accuracy. I think his accuracy, like completion percentage, is around like 72-74% last year. He makes good decisions. He's been like quoted as being like the most intelligent of the quarterbacks, and that includes kind of Trevor Lawrence in it. He hasn't got a big arm, but he is accurate, and that's what Shanahan, I think, would relate to.
Is it not the case that Shanahan is fed up with players ad-libbing his scheme? He just wants it delivered how he writes it down, and they believe Mac Jones will do that because he doesn't ad-lib.
I also think this is something else that Matt Miller from the Draft Scout mentioned as well. You look at the two Super Bowls that Shanahan's lost. And you can take it to two very specific plays. One where he's offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. There was a point where the Falcons were winning. They were driving. They were in field goal range.
There was three quarters of the game where the Falcons.
Yeah, well, sorry. There was a point.
There was one play. There wasn't. Yeah, they played themselves out of field goal range.
Yeah, they were in field goal range. Matt Ryan couldn't escape the pocket, and he was sacked, and that took them out of field goal range. That effectively ended it because by then all the momentum changed. The other play is, the killer blow that Mahomes threw to Tyreek Hill, which effectively I can't remember the pass was called. And you look at the scramble from Patrick Mahomes, and you look at his ability to escape the pocket. I don't believe Kyle Shanahan's looked at those two things and gone, I need a quarterback who's mobile. I need someone who can get out of the pocket, and when the play does break down, can make something up on the fly. And I don't see that in Mac Jones from what I've seen.
No.
Certainly don't see it in Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't see it in Josh Rosen, so I don't know why they signed him. I do see it in Justin Field and Trey Lance. And I think the 49ers have asked for an extra pro day of those two quarterbacks. They're going to those pro days this week. They're using 49er passing down. So I don't think the decision's made. I think there's a lot of hey, we're going Mac Jones, and it's just got out there and it's gone on a while, but I can't see it. I just can't see it. But
I agree entirely with everything you've just said. But it is odd that there's so much consensus around the Mac Jones pick.
Yeah.
I like Trey Lance and Justin Fields pretty much the same. But
my concern with Lance is he has one season where he threw 18 on average 18 passes a game.
Yeah.
Justin Fields has got didn't throw any interceptions, but you look at it's North Dakota State. You look at the conference they're playing in versus Justin Fields, Ohio State. He's playing against better competition. 2-year starter. He's shown he's got.
I'm with you. I think
Shanahan doesn't throw the ball 40 times a game, though, does he?
No. But never. I think Justin Fields is the second best quarterback in this draft.
I do as well.
So we'll see. It's going to be interesting because Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. Who's the other one? Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson.
2 of those 5 are probably going to be fake.
They'll be busts. Yeah.
It's. I would say it's unlikely to be Trevor Lawrence, or least likely to be Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. So that's 2 of 4. Mac Jones is the most likely one of those 4.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, you look at. I always laugh when you take a step back from looking at all the mock drafts, and every mock draft, every pick, all 32 will be like, yep, this player's going to add something to this team. Yep, this player's going to improve this team's defense, offense, whatever it might be. 50% of the drafts in the first round are going to be busts or mediocre players. There's going to be 50% that should work out well, probably about 10% who are going to be Pro Bowlers, maybe 1%, 2% that will go to the Hall of Fame. It's a crapshoot. Always is.
Great, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is.
I love the draft. It's my favourite.
I mean, if you look at the last when there was 5 guys, Baker,
2017 or 18, Darnold,
Baker,
I really
Rosen,
thought
Jackson.
you were talking about the burger place then, John.
I know.
5 guys.
I mean, some was out. Some of those days. Oh, brilliant. But yeah, no, only really one of those was a bust. Rosen. Yeah. So, and if you'd have looked at it from the start, of course, everyone would have assumed.
Everyone said,
Jackson was going to be the
everyone said
bust.
Everyone said at the time, Josh Rosen is the most pro-ready quarterback.
Yeah.
How did that work out? So, a lot of it depends on where they land.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. There's so many factors to it. Yeah. It's not just them.
One other thing from the trades that have affected the draft: the Eagles moving from 6 back to 12, exchanging with Miami. Does that cement Jalen Hurts as the starter for the new season? They're all in on Jalen Hurts, yeah?
Yep. Yeah, they had a chance at 6 to pick a new quarterback. They might not be able to pick the one they wanted, but at least they'd be in with a shout. They're rebuilding. And
instead, they signed Joe Flacco, the least mobile man in the NFL, to back up Jalen Hurts.
I think they've basically gone, let's see how it goes with Jalen Hurts. And if it's really bad, we'll get another shot at it next year. And as much as we're saying the quarterback class isn't going to be as good, someone will lead a team. Someone will emerge next year.
Yeah. So they've got 3 potential first-round picks next year. They've obviously got the pick that they've got, their own pick. The pick that they got from the Dolphins as part of the trade. And then if Carson Wentz plays 75% of the snaps, that second round turns into a first-round pick.
Right.
So they're for a team that's really big, they're like the Texans. You look at that roster and you're just like, Jesus, that's bad. So they've got draft capital to use this year and next year. Whereas, you look at the Texans, it's like, yeah, that's bad, and I've got nothing. I've got nothing to rebuild it with.
No, true. Anybody else want to throw in anything else before we move ahead into the exciting part of the podcast?
Well, I suppose we should also mention not particularly good news. So I'll mention a couple of things, and then we'll do better news. Of course, Darius Geis, former NFL running back, got accused of sexually assaulting a 74-year-old woman.
What?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know where to go with that.
So I'm just going to leave that there.
That one.
Of course, as well, Travis Rudolph, former Giants wide receiver, has 2 murder charges. And of course, Philip Adams.
That's the worst one.
Is absolutely killed 5 and himself. So it's a really rough off season. But as well, back onto the game as such. Of course, Connor has just joined the Cardinals today, hasn't he? Which is
has that gone through now? Has that gone through? James Conner will now be. So who's the Chase Edmonds? Is that?
He's gone.
Oh, he's gone. So who's
Drake? There's no Drake. Drake's gone to Raiders.
Yeah.
So I don't know who else is with him.
Kyler Murray. He's the other running back there.
Yeah. But for the Steelers, Juju is staying. He's taken less money to stay at the Steelers than
who's the Steelers running back now
then? Benny Snell.
Penny Snell.
Someone from the draft.
Yeah. Clearly. Oh,
but
fair enough.
Yeah. Sticking and running backs. The Bucks have signed Gio Bernard.
Yay!
Awesome. I'm delighted. And do you know why? Because James White didn't move there. He stayed with the Patriots, and they need a pass catching back. That's what I think. So why not? Gio Bernard and his poor moustache lives to ride another day.
Because he's terrible.
For any Raiders fans, I just need to say, it's not they have actually 4 winning seasons this century. But 3 of them were 2000, 2001, 2002. So since they lost the Super Bowl, they have had 1 winning season since 2003, which is the worst in the NFL by a long shot. So
amazing! Thank you for clarifying that position, John.
I just wanted to I know we have a Raiders friend, so I just wanted him to be accurate in letting.
I don't think he listens because he thinks we're a bunch of dicks.
Yeah.
And that's fair criticism. Right, Jim, before we get into our own draft, you have supplied us with your mock draft ahead of the NFL draft, which is coming up. And you've given us a blow-by-blow account of what teams should do in order to improve themselves. So would you like to run us through your draft so we can applaud or mock you in equal measure?
Well, I think it would mostly be mocking, knowing the group of people you are. I'm not going to go through picks 1, 2, and 3 because that's pretty straightforward. And we've discussed pick 3 already in terms of Mac Jones to the 49ers. Obviously, Lawrence goes to the Jaguars and Zach Wilson goes to the Jets. I think that is as nailed on as you can get. I think the intrigue of this draft starts at pick 4. It's whether the Atlanta Falcons take a quarterback or do they go offensive weapon. And it's either Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase as wide receiver, or they can pick up another offensive tackle and go Penny Sewell. So I think they're trading out of that pick. I think that someone, and I'm going to guess either the Broncos, Pats, or potentially Washington, if they can package up a deal big enough, make a big play to get that fourth quarterback. But we're not going to see that until draft night because it depends who goes free.
I saw this, and whilst I'm inclined to agree with you, I also think whilst the defense is bad, Atlanta are not that far away. Matt Ryan is still a really good quarterback. Yep. Julio Jones is still a really good player. Like, it wouldn't take a lot to turn this team into a winning franchise again. Kyle Pitts, you might kick yourself if you pass on that. Yeah. I really think
he is going to be, like, everyone hates using this, but generational player. Like, he just looks incredible. Apparently, pretty much every GM has got a draft crush on Kyle Pitts. He's 6'5", built like a brick shit house, runs like a 4.440, can catch the ball. He's another weapon for whatever quarterback you have. He's going to be immensely difficult to stop. I think there's probably maybe one or two cornerbacks in this league who are going to be able to stop him consistently.
Yeah, that's what I think Atlanta will do. But like you say, if they get a big enough offer, you can't turn it down. Yeah. Sorry, moving on.
Bengals at 5 again. The Bengals have got a history of never trading out of their position, so they're picking at 5.
Sewell.
I think they should pick Sewell. I think the fact that they've added Riley Reef in free agency and the fact that there's so much being made of Joe Burrow having influence within the front office and wanting his mate Jamar Chase, who does look amazing as a wide receiver prospect, I think this is Jamar Chase. I think they get their upgrade over what is AJ Green for the last couple of years, and Joe Burrow gets his mate. Don't agree with it, but...
Have you seen that somewhat a Bengals fan made a diagram to try to influence the draft this year, which was just three players, and it was Burrow, Sewell, and then an arrow to anyone, or it was Burrow, anyone, and basically it's just hit the Burrow, who is once again getting smashed, and the wide receiver was anyone. It's if they choose Jamar Chase, then Burrow's just guaranteed himself another injury.
I agree with John entirely, I'm afraid. No point having a great receiver on the field if your quarterback is lying on his ass.
Yeah. But what I will say is that this offensive line class is deep. Like, they're picking quite early in the second round, so they could get a decent offensive tackle. Not Penny Sewell level, but an upgrade over what they've got. Dolphins select Jalen Waddle. I think whatever happens here, at pick 6, Dolphins are selecting a wide receiver.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty much nailed on. Pick 7, Lions. If the top 4 quarterbacks are gone, this is where the 5th quarterback goes, and that's dependent on Atlanta trading out. If Atlanta doesn't trade out, this is where the 4th quarterback goes. So I really think the Lions are trading out of this position.
Quick one on the Dolphins. Was there not a lot of talk they were going to take Smith? Was he not Tua's favourite target?
Yeah. Right, I am denied about Smith and Waddle. I went with Waddle to the Dolphins just because he's something a little bit different to what they've got in Devontae Parker or Will Fuller. I think he's much more explosive. I think Devontae Smith is an incredible wide receiver. His route running is brilliant. His hands are amazing. He has the ability to separate somehow. But I think Jalen Waddle gives them something different in the offense. But again, what do I know? Pick 8, Panthers. This is where Penny Sewell falls far too far. I think Penny Sewell is the second best player in the draft, but Panthers solidify that offensive line. And then I had Justin Fields going to Broncos at 9. And I wrote, Fields isn't going this far down because someone's going to trade up to get him. And it could be the Broncos. 10 is Dallas Cowboys. Cornerback, Patrick Surtain II, probably the best cornerback in the class. They desperately need it. Now, the Giants. Everyone's talking about the fact it's going to be a wide receiver. I think they have got the chance. We've gone through 10 picks and we've had one defensive player at number 10. This is where the second defensive player comes off the board for me, and it's the best defensive player. It's Micah Parsons, the linebacker. He would fit into pretty much any scheme. He's, again, an awesome athlete. He's going to be playing every down. and he'll be a leader of the Giants defense for years to come. 12 Eagles, again, so many holes in that team. You could pick a wide receiver, but I think the top 3 are gone, so you don't. You take the second best cornerback in the class, J.C. Horn, who Richard Sherman says is probably the best cornerback in the class. He knows 1 or 2 things.
Also, the Eagles have just a horrible history selecting wide receivers lately, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
So just avoid first-round receivers.
Yeah. Chargers select Rashawn Slater. A lot of conjecture about Rashawn Slater could be better than Penei Sewell. He has the ability to move inside and be a guard, so there is an option there. But I see him locking up that left tackle position, the blind side of Herbert, for years to come. And then finally, we get an edge rusher coming off. So Minnesota Vikings, they need offensive line help, but they also need defensive line help as well. So they take Jalen Phillips. And then your Pats at 15. This is where I had Trey Lance going, Griff. So
You did.
I
I've told you, I don't think there's a hope in hell that we're drafting a quarterback. Belichick's not going to want to coach someone up. It's not happening.
The Pats are at Justin Fields' pro day today. So whether that's another smoke screen, and they're at the Alabama pro day, whether that means anything, but other than they're at the Alabama pro day, I don't know, but they could be looking at Matt Jones. 16, Cardinals select Caleb Farley, cornerback, to replace Patrick Peterson. 17, Raiders could select anyone in defense. I've got them locking up the middle of the field. They take Trevon Moehrig, the safety, out of TCU. Dolphins come back on the board, their second pick, take Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
I'm sorry, what's his name?
Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Yeah, I know. It doesn't get much easier. Football team, again, another opportunity. If they can get up into the top 10, it's going to cost them a lot, but they need a quarterback. It'd be good to have Trey Lance there to sit behind Fitzpatrick for a year, but it's not happening, so they solidify the offensive tackle position and take Tevin Jenkins. Chicago Bears are better. Bears are worse. I wrote, with Andy Dalton leading the franchise, stifled laughs. The Bears need to get in more weapons, so Kadarius Toney, the wide receiver. And then Colts. I think the Colts could go 1 or 2 ways. Either offensive tackle to replace Antonio Costanzo, or they improve the edge rush.
They absolutely have to take an offensive lineman to replace
I
Costanzo.
think so.
I
think so as well. Tennessee Titans, they take a wide receiver to replace Corey Davis. New York Jets, Azeez Ojulari. Seriously.
Bless you.
Thank you. Robert Saleh gets his defensive line and pass rush. That Robert Saleh's coming out in a position where he's had like 4 or 5 first-round pass rushers in his defensive line. They've got to restock that. Pittsburgh Steelers. I went with Elijah Vera Tucker, the offensive lineman. I want to change this now that James Conner's not coming back to Najee Harris, the running back.
Yeah. They have to take a running back in the first 2 rounds. They have to. But I'm not sure there are any first-round running backs in this draft.
I think there's only one, and I think it's Najee Harris. But, yeah.
As you point out, like for a team that started the season off absolutely on fire, they've lost a lot of players this off season.
Them and the Titans,
aging team, sort of come to the end of their road. Really,
them and the Titans, I think, have lost them out of the playoffs teams out of the AFC. I think they're the 2 teams that have taken a massive step backwards so far.
Yeah,
true.
Lots of big holes in the offensive line, so I could see them doing that. To be fair,
yeah. Like I said, though, it is a deep offensive line class, so you could take a better player or a player of other needs and drop down and take a lesser offensive lineman. Jacksonville Jaguars taking a Joseph Asai, edge out of Texas. Cleveland Browns. I've written, they're in a weird position for the Browns. They've got a good roster.
Yeah.
Like you look at it and you go, just take the best player you can. They're interviewing with Jadeveon Clowney yesterday about him, moving there to pair alongside Miles Garrett.
Clowney, it's over.
I reckon he'll be cheap though.
Cheap and non-productive. It's over.
Yeah.
Back to
Anyway,
the Texans.
I had them taking Quitty Pay, the edge rusher, so they get their edge rush. Baltimore Ravens are desperate for edge rushers. They lost Ngakwe, they lost Judon. They take Jason away, edge out of Penn State. This guy is 6'5", 250 pounds, and ran 4.36 40-yard dash at his pro day.
We've all been there.
New Orleans Saints, lots of chat about them wanting Kyle Trask, the quarterback out of Florida. Don't have to pick him in round 1. He will fall to round 2 unless something mad happens. So they get Greg Newsome, cornerback. Green Bay Packers. Again, this was written a few days back, and from everything I'm hearing, they're going to looking at wide receiver, which would be good. I still think their run defense is terrible. So I got them taking Nick Bolton, a linebacker out of Missouri, who is a tackle machine. Then I had Najee Harris going to Buffalo, the running back. Kansas City, if they don't take some offensive line help anywhere, then the whole front office should be sacked. And then Tampa Bay have got the luxury of bringing every starter back from last year, so they can just take the best player available. That leaves Gregory Rousseau, the edge out of Miami.
Thank you, Jim.
That's everything.
That's an extremely well documented first round. I think if you hit on 6 of those picks, you've done really well. Yeah. And it's not because you're bad; it's just that it never works out that way.
Oh no!
It's
impossible to.
I do have a question.
Trades and stuff.
We've never seen a draft where 4 quarterbacks have been the first 4 picks. It's never happened. And out of 100% likelihood, what are we looking at?
60 to 70%.
I think it, because of what's not coming next year, I think it's really likely. Like 80%.
I honestly think we're going to see 5 quarterbacks go to the top 10.
And then, if that does happen, you said Kyle Trask will be there in the second round, but will somebody do a Ravens like they traded into the 32nd pick to pick Lamar Jackson just to make sure they get him? Because I actually think Trask is in the same league as Mac Jones. I really like Kyle Trask. I think he's a good player.
He had a good year last year. Like, there are some scouts who are like up on him there, and there are a lot of scouts who are down on him, media scouts that is. Yeah. I think rather than someone trading back into the first, I could see someone like Chicago or Washington trade down, pick up some extra draft capital, and then pick up Kyle Trask.
Fair enough. Just thought I'd ask. I hadn't heard much discussion about him, and I don't think he's that far off the Mac Jones level, if I'm honest, if not in the same sort of ballpark.
His decision-making isn't as good as Mac Jones. That's the one thing that holds him back.
Okay, fair enough. Right.
I still think Atlanta Falcons would be absolutely mad to take a quarterback.
I do as well.
I agree. I just think somebody else might trade in there and take one.
Yeah.
Maybe, but yeah.
I keep hearing that football team are very keen if they can get up. But
19 to, when you think that the 49ers went 12-3 and that cost them 3 first-round picks, I think 19-4 is... Oof.
Yeah,
it's
a big ask, but it's not like football team haven't got a history of doing that. So
no, it's true.
It could be done. Right, drum roll, please.
Let's take a note of who we're going to pick.
The Snap Podcast Draft is back. From today, there will be 4 GMs and a commissioner on this podcast. I will be your commissioner, absorbing the booze, conducting the draft, ducking the bits of paper that are inevitably thrown my way via Zoom. Haven't quite figured out how you can do that yet because the post is not that quick in this country, but we'll have to do it by WhatsApp. Okay. The podcast every year has a draft, so we like to draw the picks and see who's choosing for which teams. Who's going to be Joe Douglas, John Lynch, Bill Belichick, whoever the subordinate is under Pete Carroll these days, whatever. Moving on. No one but me currently knows who's been drawn with which team, so we thought we'd reveal it on the podcast. Paul obviously isn't with us this evening, but we will forward on his picks to him, and he has promised me he will be available for the draft. So this is good. I will obviously, guys, send these to you afterwards, so don't feel you've got to start scribbling notes. But if you feel like you need to chime in, do so. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of me talking nonsense. Hopefully, you've all studied for your pre-draft exams and you'll know roughly what each team requires. Okay.
Yep.
Everyone has 8 picks in the first round. And as of today's draft order, no one has consecutive picks.
Oh, good.
This obviously could change if you trade amongst yourselves, which you are free to do.
And we have been known to do in the past.
Yeah, but these trades must be approved by me. Don't want any sodding about, especially if you're trading amongst teams you are drafting on behalf of. I will be diligent on this. Other than that, you're free to use any available capital in any rounds that your teams have. So you'll need to look that up. I will not be giving all the numbers to you, but you can pretty much play it as you see it. So I think that's fair.
What about people on our roster? We're allowed to trade people we've already got on the roster?
I will take that on a case-by-case basis. But yes, if you feel that's capital and you can genuinely move it, but I will be checking the contracts to make sure you're not moving one that can't be moved to the new team. We will try and keep it realistic. So, everybody ready?
I guess this is what we should also put out. We are not predicting what will happen.
It's what you would do.
It's what we would do.
As we said all along, if Paul Farrow wants to trade all his picks for Kiki Kuti at number 16, he is welcome to do that. That is why he doesn't have a job as a GM. I mean, like we said, though, in the break, he is now the best wide receiver at the Texans 3 years on. So, well done, Paul, looking into the future. Right. I'll do the 4 lots of selections in bunches. So, the first presenter will be picking at slots 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, and 32 on behalf of the Falcons, Panthers, Eagles, Cardinals, Bears, Steelers, Saints, and Bucks. So 8 different teams. And that person is Paul, who is not here. So I'll accept this award on his behalf. Paul will have the difficult Falcons decision, which I think out of all of those teams is the hardest one. It'll be interesting to see if he rates Matt Ryan as highly as the rest of us seem to, because he does not have a habit of following the rest of our trains of thought. So let's see.
That.
I'll pass that on to him and we'll see what he thinks. Anybody got anything to say on Paul's behalf? Take that as a no. It was very.
I mean, Paul's very reticent to trade. I will say that. So suddenly the 4th pick.
Carpet's gone then.
So that means you're going to have to be making a very attractive move for him to accept it.
I think he just can't be with the extra workload.
Possibly.
He is a very busy man.
It involves going on WhatsApp, and he doesn't like that.
It is what he would do, I suppose. So,
well, yeah, absolutely. Okay, right. We'll leave that where it is. We'll talk to Paul about it when he's got time. Right. The second presenter, picking at 3, 7, 11, 15, 19, 22, 27, and 31, again on behalf of 8 teams, which are the Niners, Lions, Giants, Patriots, football team, Tetons, Ravens, and Chiefs. It's Gary. He's got the Niners. He's in. He's also got my Patriots. He's going to sink the ship. I can feel it coming.
You know what? That is some interesting teams to pick for.
Yes, it is.
That's quite meaty, that one. So I'm quite pleased with that. Can have some fun with that.
I'm glad to hear it. There's a lot of teams in there need a lot of holes filling.
Yeah.
And one or two.
I'm the man to do it. I'm the man to do it.
I've heard this about you.
Love filling a hole. Eh?
Please play my Patriots sensibly. No,
I will.
No.
I'll do it. I'll do it how I would do it. To get the results I would want.
And it will be interesting to see what you do with the Niners and whether you think Mac Jones is any good. Because I don't think you'll take him. Right. Next up, picking at 2, 6, 10, 14, 18, 23, 26, and 30 on behalf of 6 teams in the first round, because the Jets and Dolphins have 2 picks each, as well as the Cowboys, Vikings, Browns, and Bills. It's Jim.
Oh, fuck.
Jim, you are running those 6 teams. You will also be saddled with the Rams and the Texans, who do not have first-round picks, but you might wish to trade into the first round to play this game.
I feel like you did that because only Jim would have enough know-how to trade back.
These were all chosen completely at random.
Well, that's the way I'd have done it, because the rest of us have been like, well, they've got nothing. Like the Texans, like
Jim, no.
Jim would have to work on that for about 2 weeks.
But Jim, what do you think?
I'm quite interested by that. Who have I got? Dolphins.
You've got 2 picks for the Dolphins, 2 picks for the Jets.
Cowboys.
Cowboys, Vikings, Browns and Bills.
Vikings, Browns and Bills. Ooh, that's good. I think that's quite interesting. Yeah, I can get on with that.
Maybe you can pick a new quarterback up for the Texans because they're going to need one.
No, there's just nothing you can do with the Texans.
As GM, can you just close them down?
Yeah,
just close them down. Just quit football.
No point.
Yeah.
We're going to forfeit the year as the Texans and just
move them to Ontario and chuck them in the CFL.
Yeah, I mean that's the best bet.
That's a long way from Texas.
Literally relegate them.
Just quit. Give us back a 16-game season.
There you go.
All of that by process of elimination means the lucky presenter picking at 1, as well as 5, 9, 13, 17, 21, 25 and 29. It's John picking for the Jags with their 2 picks, as well as the Bengals, Broncos, Chargers, Raiders, Colts and Packers. And the terribly encumbered Seahawks with their massive 3 selections through the rest of the draft.
That's another franchise I don't mind you winding up.
You've got a lot of hard work to do there, John. There are some teams that need a lot.
There are some shonky teams in there.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I've got the
anything you do is a good decision.
Yeah. I mean, as the first pick, obviously I should be taking Lawrence, but I feel as a human, Trevor Lawrence is just too talented to go to the Jaguars, and I just don't think I can do it to him. Even this sort of metaphysical Trevor Lawrence here, I just don't want to put him in that team. So please consider your trades for me, because I think for Lawrence's well-being,
out of the first pick, if you traded out of the first pick, you just threw the whole thing into complete disarray. That would be amazing. But you are free to do so if you can make it work. I will be looking at that very closely. That is going to cost some dough to do that. But yeah, feel free. Ingenuity is the name of the game. Everybody happy with their teams?
I can't remember my teams, but yeah.
You can't remember your other teams.
Have I got the Giants as well, Griff?
You got the Giants,
yes.
So I've got all the teams we support on this podcast. I'm going to get destroyed. Literally. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Because I don't give a fuck.
Bizarrely, for the Giants, we're in a state where actually, our squad looks pretty good this coming season. So I'm interested to see what you do.
Quarterback.
Well, that's it.
Only that key piece.
No, I think
if your team stays healthy, that might not matter so much.
Oh, come on. Daniel Jones is terrible.
He's not terrible. He's just not.
He's not good. He's not good. Is he?
Well, that'll be up to you. I mean, do you think you can move up to one of these quarterbacks?
I've got a very early pick you can have, Gary.
Yeah. I could also have Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, and for the Giants, it won't cost you anything.
I mean, you can't say this guy's terrible and then go, but I could have Teddy Bridgewater. That doesn't count.
No,
that doesn't count.
Blake's out there somewhere as well, isn't he?
Blake is out there somewhere. If you can manage to get Blake Bortles signed up to one of these teams, I will let that ride.
He's free agent. That's easy.
Yep, Patriots just for me. Brilliant.
Hoyer could go back to the Texans, couldn't he?
Didn't I see Brian Hoyer's name come up in the news this week? He was visiting the Dolphins to back up Tua, or the Jets to be the backup to whoever they draft.
He's gone to he's visiting the Jets. You're right.
Okay.
Well, Robert Saleh link that'll be.
Yeah, maybe. Look how well it worked out the first time. Gentlemen, anything to add before we close off tonight's show? No. Silence.
No. I think we're good.
the brains are working hard. Everyone started looking at their research to figure out how they're going to move out of the places they're in or engineer their way up and down the draft.
Trying to think if I'd need to move anywhere.
I'm delighted. I knew Jim would be taking it most seriously. He's already off and running. I expect the trade calls to start coming in already. So, just to confirm, the Snap UK pod draft will be 2 weeks from today.
Draft.
Next week, we will be discussing the draft itself, the top 10 players that we think are in there, and having a look at, in reality, what will happen. And then we'll play our little game the following week, 2 days ahead of the draft for real. Gentlemen, the table has been laid. The draft board is ready to be filled. Go forth and prepare to propel your teams to future success by choosing the right talent and not drowning my Patriots with crap picks. Without further ado, I'm going to say goodbye, and I think you guys should do the same. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.